Our next speaker is Ciaran Hayes, Chief Executive of Sligo County Council. Ciaran is going to talk to us today about climate action response. Climate action, obviously a global challenge, but also a local challenge. And Ciaran is going to talk a little bit about the sectoral response and how we're managing to respond to that challenge. So Ciaran, over to you.
Thanks very much indeed. Can you hear me there okay? And the slide it's on the screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, that's me, Chief Executive of Sligo County Council, and I suppose one of the things I want to deal with is the perception that's out there of local government, and the perception is often the reality, and we're often thought of as just dealing with potholes. And with climate change now, it's bringing very, very different connotations and a very, very different challenge to our doors. We're all well used to, so whatever the perception is about the potholes and so on, we're all well used to now at this stage the more frequent severe weather events, and the fact that the local authority sector is pretty much in the front line at doing the cleanups. And we've had the 2010 big freeze, and we're now seeing far more frequent storms, including ex-tropical storms, landing on our shores, and we're just after a storm from last weekend again, which is having further impact. So the perception, I think, is changing in terms of our particular role. Having, I suppose, looked at this for over a number of years, it was quite clear to me, going back as far as 2015, that the area of the environment, the area of climate change, was going to be one of the greatest growth areas within local government. And I think there was a recognition within the sector that we weren't necessarily ready for it, in that we didn't have the competencies required, or we didn't have them in sufficient numbers or sufficient resources to be able to deal with the very major challenges that were coming our way. But at the time, we decided, and it took us a couple of years, but we set up the Climate Action Regional Offices, and they have proven, and this was a way of trying to deal with that gap in our own competency, in our own resources. And they have really proven their worth, certainly in recent years, and so much so that they've come to the attention of other local authorities, particularly across in the UK, where they noted that they should, in the UK government, should look at the Irish model of the Climate Action Regional Offices. However, I'm not sure we should be resting on our laurels. If anything, really, what's happening now is the bar is continuing to rise, and the targets are getting higher. And now we're looking at a 2050 target of being carbon neutral, and that is going to test every one of us. So when you look, and when we analysed where local government fitted within the entire context, within the system, at the top level you have the various policy domains, whether it's the environment, enterprise, transport, etc. And each government department was going to be driving their national policy, and in order to implement that national policy at local level, they needed some kind of a structure, or some kind of a structure is going to be required in order to engage at local level and have it implemented at local level. And that there's no other structure available other than the local government and the local authorities that have a reach into every parish within the country. So, and at local level, then we have that opportunity to be able to engage with the local communities, whether it's the tidy towns or whether it's the public participation network, local community councils, or the chambers of commerce. So we're ideally situated to be able to deliver national policy at local level. On the side of the adaptation side, now the adaptation is about recognizing that climate change has happened. Therefore, we must put in place certain adaptation measures in order to be able to deal with it. And we were all required by September of last year, all local authorities were required by September of last year to adopt an adaptation plan. And it was through the CAROs and the assistance of the CAROs that we were able to get those across the line by the due date, and they were all done to a certain consistency. And we were conscious at the same time that climate change is no respecter of borders, so that consistency was quite important. On the energy and emissions management side, there is differing performance levels around the country. Even here in Sligo, we're a little bit behind the curve. But certainly the areas, Tipperary's, Kilkenny's, the areas in the Midlands where there is a good association and a long association with energy agencies, they have been ahead of the curve. And indeed, places like Louth have been at this now for 10 years or more, and they're certainly ahead of the curve. But in the smaller local authorities, as I say, I think what has traditionally happened, and we'll be referring to this later on, is when a new circular comes down, a new requirement is required of us, we generally tag it on, or we have often tagged it on to a job description of some of the officials, and we ask them to give a certain amount of their time each week to an issue. That's not necessarily possible, particularly in the smaller local authorities, particularly those who have shed jobs since the last recession in 2008. So we have to look at other ways of dealing with the issue, and what we've come up with in the Northwest is an Energy Bureau where we're collaborating with SEAI and all of the local authorities in the Northwest region. We'll all be contributing to the establishment of an Energy Bureau, and that Energy Bureau will assist us. It'll be located in the Carrow office in Mayo, and that will assist all local authorities to try and deal with those energy issues at local level. We'll also be involved on the mitigation side with the development of the woodland on public lands is another government priority, and a whole new area for us is these decarbonised zones. This is an area we haven't really been involved in before, so it's brand new. So again, there's a lot of work going on in Dublin in this area. They've produced a very, very good paper on decarbonised zones. So this is an area that requires, again, that additional resource and that additional expertise. Also, what I like in terms of the development of the Carrows is the fact that each of the Carrow offices around the country are aligned with a third level institute, and they're involved in research, climate action research, and they're putting together a database and data of necessary data that will inform decisions into the future. So I think essentially what we're aiming to be is at the cutting edge of all things in climate action. So to come back to this again, I don't think we can rest on our laurels. As I said earlier, the bar is getting higher. So the issue for us now is where do we take it from here? And we've been considering this over the last number of months. And in considering it, we decided that, right, we have gone so far, but we need to take it on to the next level, and we've decided to put together a strategic management initiative, go through an entire strategic management process, and we've come up with our own strategy, and we have also put together two business cases, one where we're looking for additional resources for the local government sector, the local authorities, I should say, and the second is additional resources for the Carrow offices themselves. And that's simply because of the raising of the bar and the increasing workload and the increasing number of functions that are coming at us from a climate change perspective. I'm also conscious too that there's no income stream in any of this for the local authorities. Therefore, we've been able to, or what we have done within the business cases is try to identify the various government departments that have a role in this, and we're seeking support and finances in order to provide for those resources. I'll come to those now in a moment. In every strategic document we have a vision. In our case, it's that the capability, reach and resources of local authorities are leveraged to lead effective climate action across Ireland. There's also a mission statement, as you would expect, and in this case it's to deliver transformative and measurable impact on climate action, both within our organisations and across the cities and counties. And there are 6 strategic goals. Now, there's nothing particularly out of the ordinary here. These are goals that you would expect to see in a document such as this, or a strategy such as this: fostering governance, leadership and partnership, achieving our carbon emissions, delivering on climate adaptation, mobilising climate action in local communities. That's a really tricky one, and mobilising climate action in enterprise and support transition to an inclusive net zero and circular economy, which was just referred to in the last presentation, and then achieving a just transition. But again, as I mentioned earlier, rather than tasking some individual with having certain other functions tagged onto their job description. We're coming at this from a very strategic perspective, and we've divided it up into various areas: the energy and emissions management, internal change management, climate adaptation, community capacity building and behavioural change, biodiversity and land use planning, and climate action coordination. And there's a recognition on the part of the sector that this impacts the entire organisation and all of the functions of the local authorities. So that's just, I'm not going to go through this now in this 15 minutes, but that's just a very quick rundown of the additional resources required, both from the CARO point of view and from the local authority point of view. And again, we're coming at it from a very structured perspective. And again, with 31 local authorities in the country, there's a requirement to ensure that there's good governance and that all of the various different the CAROs and so on are in a position to operate to a particular standard, and the governance is appropriate across the entire sector. But this is an area that I want to get to, and people will be aware of the National Public Lighting Project, where we're looking to reduce our CO2 emissions on public lights by 31,000 tonnes annually. We're looking to upgrade nationally 280,000 lights. In our own case, it's cost of 400 million, over 400 million nationally. In our own case, we just went to council there for approval to seek a loan of 4 million to upgrade the 7,700 lights in County Sligo. But this is where, as I say, it gets really interesting. From the point of view of energy, we're right in the middle here. We will end up having collaborations both on the one hand, on one end of the spectrum with the likes of EirGrid and with the energy generators, and on the other end of the spectrum with the likes of local community development companies and local organisations to try and get their buy-in to accept renewable energies. Now, everybody is in favour of renewable energies, but it's a bit like it's not in my backyard. You know, we don't necessarily want a wind farm here. So there's a real challenge there for us, but we have to come up with ways of thinking outside the box in order to deliver on those projects. This is an interesting case study in Caird Park in Dundee City Council, and the ESB were actually involved in this. And this is where they have a municipal golf course, and they were able to tap into the geothermal energy, which provides some of the energy requirement for their regional sports centre. And also some district heating schemes. Now, if you bring that locally, this is an aerial shot of a part of Sligo, and the large open space there is actually Sligo Racecourse. It's owned by Sligo County Council and leased to the Racecourse Committee. And down in the bottom right-hand corner, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, that's our regional sports centre. There is no reason technically why we can't tap into the geothermal energy of that open space, plus the open space across the road, which is a municipal park, and use that geothermal energy to provide some of our energy requirement for the regional sports centre. Also, technically, if you see on the top of the screen, there's a small site outlined in yellow, Durley Park it's called. That is a vacant site, and we'll be looking to develop somewhere between 15 and 20 affordable houses. And technically, there's no reason why, if we have sufficient geothermal energy, why we can't bring it and use it as a district heating scheme to that particular development. So this is where we need to be thinking outside the box. This is the easy bit. This is a new development of 14 apartments that tenants have just gone into just on the Rosses Point Road in Sligo. They're built to an A3 BER rating, and the electricity, power and energy costs per week for a 2-bedroom apartment are between €7.50 and €8. That's not just the electrical appliances, but that's the heating system as well. But that's the easy bit. This is the more difficult bit. These are, you can see these around the country. This is housing construction from the late 70s, early 80s. Poor construction at the time, bad insulation, bad air tightness, and poor heating systems. And given that it's a high density social housing area, the tenants in here quite often are in fuel poverty, with the result that they spend a larger proportion of their income on energy, and because of that they buy the cheapest and the dirtiest fuel, which contributes to poor air quality within the region. Now, with this particular scheme, we've got 21 million. and we're doing an urban regeneration in the area. We're upgrading the houses, and by the way, we've been able to calculate the amount of carbon savings, and we've been able to trade those carbon savings on the ETS, the emissions trading scheme, and we reckon we'll get in the region of 300,000, which will go towards, it'll be part of our match funding for the development of a community centre in that area. But what's really interesting now about this is we're starting to get data in terms of the energy savings for the tenants. And these have surprised me, I have to say. For a semi-detached bungalow, 2-bedroom, saving of €53 per week. And further down there, you see a semi-detached bungalow, 1-bedroom, a saving of €82 per week. And interesting from the tenant's perspective, what they're saying is their health is actually much better. And another interesting fact is the disposal of fire ashes. They're not now disposing of their fire ash, therefore they're saving from the point of view of the waste. This is also another interesting one. We've built another NZ home on an individual site that we have, and we're coming to the point now where the tenant is in here for almost a year, and the tenant also has documented and has the data in relation to their energy requirement for the previous year. So it'll be very interesting to see the comparison between the 2 years, the pre and post tenancy. So that data and this data, I think, is going to be critical in terms of the whole just transition issue and how we, I suppose, invest monies in older areas such as this, and how we deliver on. We reckon there's about 40,000 of these houses around the country that require to be upgraded. This is within the local authority housing stock. So I think that the data coming from this will be very, very important in terms of the public policy decision making required in the future. Again, thinking outside the box, we've collaborated with the GAA, and if you think about it, both the GAA and the local authorities, both of us have a reach into every parish in this country. And if we're in a position to deal with the clubs, by the way, it could be any sporting organisation, but in this case it's the GAA. But if we're in a position to deal with the clubs and encourage them to use renewable energies, reduce their energy costs, and even if we're in a position that the local clubs can power their floodlighting systems with renewable energies, that's what's going to be spoken of in the pubs at night. And that's what's going to win over the hearts and minds of individuals. And it's this kind of collaboration that we need to be getting involved in more and more. On the training and education side, the Carrow office in Kildare, I've absolute credit to them. They've put together a very, very comprehensive training program. Now, what we're looking to do here is very ambitious. We have in the region, in round figures, 28,000 staff within the sector, within 31 local authorities. And we're looking to train each of those, or give them, I suppose, a module in the area of climate change. And the program that has been put together, it's in 6 modules. It's targeting everyone from the top senior management level all the way down to those who would, let's say, the clerical staff who wouldn't necessarily be engaging or out there in the dealing with the publics, dealing with the various community groups and so on. And in between that, we also have, there's a module there, for example, on empowering change. And this is where we do have a cohort of staff that are dealing with individual groups, are dealing with the likes of the Chambers of Commerce, the Tidy Towns Committee, the Public Participation Network, and local community councils, community development councils. So if they're in a position to encourage and animate climate change and behavioural change at local level, then all the better. This programme was put together, as I say, by the Kildare office, but it was put together in tandem with an awful lot of other agencies, government departments, and third level institutions. And I see no reason why this particular programme cannot be tweaked for delivery to other government departments, not just the local government sector, but other government departments and other agencies. I'm looking here, if you think about it, the leader companies around the country, they all have an environmental funding stream. There is no reason why we cannot provide this kind of training to the likes of Leader as well, so that their staff are geared towards ensuring that applications for funding through their streams come with a climate proof are climate proofed as part of their application process. So I think this is very ambitious, but it's also very comprehensive. So I think, you know, I'm right back where we started. Hopefully I'm within the 15 minutes. And I think the challenge is, rather than the perception being the reality, I think we need to make reality the perception. So apologies if I've gone over time. So thank you very much for your attention.